Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? Today we're going to talk about the scary one, your caster angle. So yeah, I'm about to finish up replacing the CV axles and the outer tie rods on both sides of this Honda Prelude, for which a separate video will be coming out, but I thought, hey, what better time to make a video about the different alignment adjustments you can make to your car, how each adjustment affects tire wear, steering and handling, and how the actual adjustments are made, and whether you can do it as a DIYer. All right, so let's get into it. What is caster? Your caster is the slope in degrees of an imaginary line drawn from your upper to your lower pivot points of your steering axis. Might as well be talking Chinese, I know, but have no fear. We're gonna break it down. All right, so you always have two steering pivot points. Now on this car, you have an upper control arm with your upper ball joint, and you also have a lower control arm with your lower ball joint. Other times your lower pivot point will be your lower ball joint and your lower control arm. The upper one will just simply be your strut. This will be connected to your strut. So again, to find your caster angle, you draw an imaginary line exactly from the center of this pivot point to the bottom pivot point. So that would give you one line. And then you need to compare that to a line drawn exactly perpendicular to the ground at 90 degrees. And the difference between those would give you either positive or negative caster. So if this line is, if you draw this imaginary line, if relative to this perpendicular line, if this is behind and towards the steering wheel, that would be positive caster. If it's past this line, that would be negative caster. And of course, if it's meeting it dead at center, that would be no caster or zero caster. Now the caster spec for this Prelude is going to be 2.7 degrees positive caster. That would mean that this imaginary line between the two pivot points would have to be behind the line that's exactly perpendicular to the ground. All right, now this is going to represent the straight line that's exactly perpendicular to the ground, and then hopefully you guys can see that our imaginary line from our pivot points is just slightly towards the inside or the steering wheel, which would again be that 2.7 positive degrees of caster. Now having positive caster is very important, and pretty much all cars are set up to have positive caster out of the factory. And that's because, for one, it improves stability at highway speeds. So yeah, just imagine you have your tire on here, and then again, if with positive caster, that imaginary line would actually mean that that line would land in front of the tire where it hits the ground, or in other words, your tire is just in front of the pivot points. And with that setup, you're basically applying a bit of a self-aligning torque, for lack of a better term, to the wheels to try to keep them straight. And that's beneficial, of course, when you're going at high speeds. Also, when you're coming out of corners, you'll notice that your steering wheel wants to turn back to the straight position on its own. That's basically a bit of a self-aligning torque as a result of having positive caster. Now, another way to demonstrate this is to just imagine anything like this tool cart that has these casters, or in fact, just think about a shopping cart with these casters, the way they're set up this way. And if we were to travel this way, this would be negative caster because they're set up behind the pivot points. Now let's say if we were to push this or a shopping cart down a street going downhill, the odds of this going in a straight line is very, very unlikely. Or better yet, imagine your bicycle. The way most bicycles are set up is you got the handles, and then you get the wheel, the front wheel in front of you, and then there's that slope of the caster angle, which would give you positive caster that's towards you. Now imagine same bicycle with the caster angle, not even at negative caster, but just at 0 degrees. That imaginary line between the pivot points is exactly perpendicular to the ground. Now imagine going down a hill really fast with that neutral caster angle. I think you can kind of feel it, or imagine that you'll be doing, it's going to want to wander, and you'll be doing a lot of this because it doesn't have that same self-aligning torque where positive caster has. So, losing control with those at higher speeds is highly likely, and that's why you want positive caster on your car. Also, having positive caster will greatly improve your handling around corners because of, again, that, putting that self-aligning torque on the front wheels to try to get them back into the straight position. So for example, imagine this car is going around making a right turn, and the wheels are turned all the way to the right. We'll put the wheel on for this demonstration. All right, so as you're making that sharp right turn, you're going to experience body roll. When that happens, all the weight is going to get shifted towards this side, of course, and therefore it's going to be put on this tire, and more specifically on the outside of this tire as you're making that right turn. Now, as that happens, it's going to want to push the tire and the wheel this way a little bit, which would be, positive camber, but we're not gonna get into camber alignment in this video, but just imagine that this tire is getting pushed this way, this wheel is getting pushed this way as you're making that sharp right turn. When that happens, of course, you're gonna increase, all the contact surface is gonna be on the outside of the wheel. But if you have positive caster and you have that self-aligning torque that wants to push this wheel all the time, get it back to the center or go in a straight line, that will help increase your contact surface on the tire as you're making that turn, in the middle and on the inside of the tire. And when you increase your contact surface, you improve your traction and therefore you improve your handling as well. All right, so how are caster adjustments made? Basically, caster adjustments, there's only two ways to make them. You either move the upper pivot point forward or inward to change that angle, or the bottom one. In my limited experience, it's usually the upper control arm that you get to move by the way of adjusting bolts on the control arm, either in one direction or the other, to increase or decrease your caster angle. Now with that said, just because you have caster angle specifications, that doesn't mean that angle is adjustable on your car. In fact, on most cars, front wheel drive especially, your caster is not adjustable. So basically that specification is there just so that there is some sort of a damage to the steering components or the drivetrain. You can check that angle and make sure that angle is still good. Or maybe you make mods to your car, to the suspension and whatnot, and then you need to go check that angle, make sure it's still okay and within specifications. So yeah, your caster angle or having positive caster allows you to go down in a straight line going at high speeds, also improves your handling around corners. One thing I need to note that your caster angle has no effect on your tire wear, unless we're talking about a very extreme case. But also your caster angle is not adjustable on most vehicles. So with that said, we're gonna wrap this video up. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe and hit that bell notification. Also check out my other videos, links on this side of the screen, in the suggestion box, also in the description box as well. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.